What's up, guys? Welcome back to OverTakes. This is Misfit, and today we're doing our Week 3 recap for the Overwatch League. Got a bunch of stuff to talk about. We had a lot of matches, a lot of things going on. We finally got to see APAC, and it was crazy, and we'll talk more about that in a second. First, before we get into that, I'd like to thank all of you for joining me. If you guys have been here for one day or for 5 years, thank you very much for all your support. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. If you're new, just checking me out, stopping by. I do Overwatch League content 2 to 3 times a week, depending on what's going on. And let's get started. All right. First, we have some news that broke today. It's Monday. We had Boston let go of Marvell. Apparently, he's having some personal problems, and he needed to go back to Korea. So they mutually decided to part ways. And there's also been a rumor coming out from Halo that potentially Striker could be going as well. So there's some things going on in Boston. Their play has been subpar, to say the least, minus their whatever happened on the last game match of the day on Sunday. But they have not been performing well. I believe Striker didn't really play at all. I didn't watch too much of the Boston matches. I caught some of the one yesterday, of course, because, well, it got interesting really fast. But yeah, so that's what's going on with Boston. They had too many tanks anyway. I think they had 3. They had Punk, Itzel, and Marvell. You don't need 3 tanks right now. 2 is plenty. Striker happens to go. He wasn't playing the greatest striker like Overwatch. You hate to see him go, but I don't know if there's something going on where the problems just came back in Boston that were there before when he left the first time. I don't know. But that's the news coming out of Boston. All right, now let's get into Week 3. We had a lot going on. We finally got to see APAC. Let's talk a little bit about that. The East was chaotic, to say the least. The first day, I got everything wrong. I went out on a limb and took the Valiant against the Charge. I still think they're better than the Charge, but Charge got them the best of them in that match. Philly looks like they're really good. The Dragons look a little shaky. The matches, all of them weren't necessarily good, but most of them are fairly competitive unless they involve Philly. The meta was kind of different than we've seen. We saw a lot of Ashe. We've seen hardly any in NA. A lot of people were calling it a throw pick. These guys always come up with something different. We also saw some Pharah, which mostly was Alpha Yi for Hangzhou on Lijiang Tower Garden map, which has always been a good and always will be a good Pharah map. No matter if you're running 5v5 or 6v6, you just get a lot of value. There's a lot of cover. There's a lot of places to hide. A lot of weird angles like Alpha E was taking. We saw some different stuff. I mean, hey, and they ran Zarya and Reaper, but they also ran a lot of Winston. We saw that. We saw some Diva. So they're fleshing their meta out a little bit differently maybe than NA. They also were leaning on Genji a lot, which is still a solid pick. Teams tended to lean on the Tracer and maybe the Reaper with Zarya kind of thing going on. And we saw a couple other wackadoo things where you had teams trying to run Reaper and Winston and things like you normally don't see that generally don't work, but they're going to try stuff over there. And, it was entertaining to watch for sure. It was absolute bedlam and chaos in every match. I'm just waking up on Friday going, oh shit, here we go. APAC, back to their normal tricks as far as what you think is going to happen and the reality of what happens when they play. But yeah, all in all, it was good to see it back, and there were some surprising results. And Shanghai kind of in a weird place right now. They looked okay after they got through the Spark. I thought the Spark were going to be good before the year started, so, I mean, that didn't surprise me too terribly much. And they got 3 out. I mean, you don't see that very often. I feel like they weren't ready. There were just points where I think they maybe took things a little too lightly in a couple of instances in these matches, and they got into battles that they didn't think they were going to get into. Philadelphia came out and just literally washed the floor with them. They just absolutely destroyed them. They did not have a chance. They were not ready for Philly. They were not ready for the aggression. They were not ready for Philly's rookies to just absolutely own their asses like they did. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting next weekend when you have 2 teams or 3 teams playing 4 matches. Philly, Shanghai, and Chengdu. Yeah, that's going to be very, very interesting. And I really can't wait for it to happen. I mean, there are 3 matches a day from Thursday in. I will have a preview for APAC up on Wednesday for sure. We'll get into these matches and see what's going to happen. This is going to be a weird week for APAC. Weirder. Just a lot of matches, a lot of grind. By Sunday, these guys are going to be kind of spent, but they got to catch up. So, I mean, I don't understand the 4-on-4, or 4 matches, I should say, for the 3 teams, the Philly, Chengdu, and Shanghai, but they had to work something out, I guess. Math that I don't want to get into. Anyway, so let's go to talk about NA for a second. Come up with a name for the segment that I kind of proposed and sent out last week, and I got some positive responses, and people liked it. I'm going to call it Team Takes for now. If you guys got a better name, by all means, let me know. But first, let's talk NA. NA kind of went the way you thought it was going to go. The meta's kind of stabilizing-ish. We have teams running some of the things that they're good at. Some teams trying to run things that they're not particularly good at. But you're getting your Zarya Reaper. What are we calling it? The Ghost Bubble, Dark Bubble, or something. Who knows? The Weightlifter and the Edgelord. Now, on that subject, I really like it better when Echo gets value. Don't get me wrong. A lot of teams, and especially in APAC, are running Echo. You get a lot of value, especially when you get the Reaper going in there. And I like it better with 76 in this iteration, just way more. The 76 Reaper, maybe even I would go Tracer Reaper, kind of works better to me because Tracer can run around and do things, distract and get all the work done that you need a Tracer to do, and especially if they have Echoes and Winston and stuff like that, you can use the Tracer a lot more to your advantage than maybe some of the other picks. But Soldier does so much damage right now on the patch that they're running that and the aim these guys have, you just got to use them. And I would even say you could use them later on. But a lot of things are kind of where you thought they were going to be as far as NA. Now, before I get into the team takes, actually, I wanted to do one thing. Because we got to talk about standings and stuff now. Cutoff is, probably the 8 teams that all of you guys thought were going to be in there. Maybe minus Florida. I'll give you the Florida angle on that. Maybe you thought Boston was going to be in there. Maybe you thought NYXL was going to be in the top 8 going in. But teams that you pretty much thought were going to be qualifying for this tournament are there. San Francisco's in first. Dallas is in second. Reign, third. Florida, fourth. Houston, fifth. Washington, sixth. Toronto, seventh. And the Gladiators, eighth, who can't win a map 5 to save their life and got reverse swept twice. We'll talk about them in a minute. But the bottom 4 teams are exactly who I kind of expected to be down there. London, Boston, New York, Vancouver, Paris. All mediocre at best. Boston and London both got two wins somehow. Well, Boston got 1 because they played Vancouver. I believe London did as well. So that's where we stand for the tournament, the kickoff clash. Like I said, seems like what I was thinking it was going to be anyway, the teams in there. Not necessarily in the order they're in. Because once you get into a tournament, crazy things happen. I don't think Florida's going to be up at 4, but if they're 4 seed, they got to play the Glads. Who would they play? Houston. That was a good match the last time. Who knows? But anyway, let's do the segment in the recaps I'm going to be doing from now on. I'm calling it Team Takes. While I was watching matches, I wrote down a sentence about some of the teams. Not necessarily all of them, because I didn't watch all of the matches. A couple of them I watched the highlights or just kind of fast forwarded through some of it, some of your garbage games and stuff like that. Things that you're like a lot of Sunday. I didn't pay too much attention to. Florida, I'm a Florida fan, so I kind of watched Florida and New York Excelsior. But you see where I'm going. Team takes. Quick few words about a bunch of the teams that played this weekend. All right, let's start. We're going to start in APAC. Philly, legitimately good. They are going to be in the running every tournament, and not for just the playoff spot. They're legit good in that they can win these tournaments. Dragons look shaky, but they should get their footing once they figure out what to play. I just don't think that there's a lot of who are you, which is fine on Genji. I don't mind that. He had a couple of sub in, sub out things. I thought Void would look better than he did. Fate looked pretty decent at times. Once they work things out, they'll be back to being Shanghai. Valiant, they will get wins. Look out for this team to spoil somebody's day. I thought they played well. They went 0-3. They had a legitimate shot in 2 of the 3 matches to win. Charge, meh. That's all I got to say about them. They got to win, but yeah, whatever. They do nothing for me. I still think they're the worst team. They're just meh. I couldn't even think of anything beyond that. Dynasty. Here we fucking go again with this team. Oh, you Dynasty fans, I don't know how the fuck you do it, but every year it's the same thing. I don't care if you put the best players, if you put Hanbin on tank and you had Lee Jae-gon and a Shu for your support line, and you had Prophet and Fitz, or you had Leave and Fitz, or whoever. They're still going to do the same damn thing. They're going to be great one match, and you're like, oh, there they are. That's the team. But then there's the matches like they played against Hangzhou, who's good, and they lost, and then they almost lost to the Valiant. Skill level wise, I did say the Valiant's good, but I'm on a soul rant. This is more than a sentence. I was mauling all weekend. Anyway, here we fucking go again. That's what I'm thinking of the Dynasty. All right, let's go over to NA. Shock. Best team in NA with Dallas. Hands down. I don't care what you say. Throw somebody else at me. Whatever. This team is unbelievably good. They're resilient, and the problem that everybody should be worried about is that they're well coached and trust the crust. Best team in NA with Dallas. Glads. They need to learn how to finish a match. And soon. Not Blizzard soon. They need to learn how to do this now. They got 2-0 leads on two of the best teams in the league. They need to figure out their coaching is what they really need to do, and the strategy. Because when a team, it feels like they figure out what they're doing, they don't make the proper adjustments to get back into the flow of what they were doing. They kind of stick with what they're doing, and then they scramble around. It just doesn't feel right. They go in with a solid plan, but they don't back it up later. Justice. What the fuck is this team? Welcome. Seoul. But Seoul, but worse. At least Seoul lost to Hangzhou, who's good. You lost to Boston. And it was one of those matches. I saw it early on. Decay was not looking good. The supports were getting absolutely dunked on constantly. It just... This team has so much talent. They should not be doing this against Boston. They should have 3-0'd Boston. I don't care what any of you say on that. Dallas. See San Francisco. Tops in NA. They keep rolling. They had a hiccup against Houston, and since then, they've been unstoppable. Their tanks are unbelievable. DPS, no matter who they put in, are good. And their supports are above solid. They're really, really good. Boston, you got to win. Still Garbo. That's my sentence for Boston. And the rest of them, I didn't even... Paris right now, playing like the worst team in NA. Grand total of 2 map wins. Vancouver has 3. Vancouver has advantage. I can't wait till they play each other. All right, so that was Team Takes for Week 3. Hope you guys like that. I have fun doing it, and I just write down what comes to mind. I'm not pulling any punches with it, one way or the other. If I see something and I think it looks good, I'm going to say it. The team looks good. If I think they look bad, I'm going to say they look bad. Okay, so we're going to talk about 2 matches today. I pulled 1 match from each division. We're going to talk Spark Dragons from APAC and Gladiators Shock. Sorry, Glads fans, but it has to be discussed. I'm not going to watch any matches that potentially could have made me mauled. I could have done Washington, Boston. Oh, and congratulations, Justice. You've pissed me off on Week 3. We're already here. And I don't mean pick'em wise. I mean just the standard mauled when I watch this team. Washington's basically everything else in Washington, D.C. A pack of lies and a bunch of bullshit. That's what this team is. They are Washington to a T. They come in with big promise and fail. No matter what it is. All right, let's talk about Spark Dragons. This match, I had to watch it a second time because I was watching it early in the morning. And, you get a map 5 match between the Spark and the Dragons at 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, I wasn't all there, so I had to rewatch it. But it was legitimately one of the better matches I've seen. There was a lot of good stuff going on here. Yeah, it was a little shaky at times. I jumped on the Spark bandwagon reluctantly. And I don't think they've disappointed me yet this year. They beat Seoul. They could literally be 2-1. I'm sorry, 3-0. They played that well. The last map in this match, it It's push. It's just the way it is. But going in, I was expecting this to be a tight match. I thought that the Dragons would probably win 3-1 because I had higher expectations for the Dragons. Obviously, I did not make my pick 'em after I saw them get defeated by Philly 3-0. So I didn't have that in the back of my head when I made my pick. I made my pick on, Thursday, Wednesday, somewhere in there. I made it midweek. And one thing I want to say about Hangzhou when we start getting into this is I thought Bernard played really, really well when he was in there. That was a surprise for me. Yeah, there was a couple of times where they played diva. I wasn't the biggest fan of that, but he kind of made it work in spots. But his Zarya was really good. And when they had Gouchway in there playing Winston comps, he was really good too. He was Gouchway doing the Gouchway things. But their DPS was absolutely phenomenal. I thought Shy and Alpha Yi looked fantastic. Alpha Yi did a lot of hard carrying. Shy made some big plays. Shy did die a few times in this match when he went tack visor. But when you're going up against the Dragons, sometimes those ults like that are hard. But just a couple of little things with Shy where I would have liked to have seen some better stuff. But he still looked pretty solid. And Alpha Yi looked like a legit Rookie of the Year candidate. Genji was phenomenal. He was doing some good stuff on Reaper. He was causing chaos for the Dragons. And that's something you normally don't see. And yeah, he was legit. The Dragons, on the other hand, I thought at times they looked okay with Void. Now, I thought Void would have looked a lot better. It takes a little getting used to. And they started running a lot more Fate. I noticed that in this match this weekend. I don't know if it was leaning on the Winston comps or leaning on the Winston comps because Fate's a better shot caller. But they looked good when Fate was in there. They had some moments, though, where he would go in a little too hard. Li Jaegon did that a lot, too. There was a lot of questionable overextensions by Fate and Li Jaegon in this match. I don't mind them playing Who Are You? Now, some people are saying, oh, why are you benching Fleta? Who Are You is really good on Genji. Potentially, I mean, you could say he's better than Fleta. I mean, we haven't seen his Genji a ton in the last couple of years because obviously Genji hasn't been really that meta. This is the first time he's really been meta since, season 1? We had that little spurt there where they kind of overbuffed him in 2020, but he wasn't playing really that. He was on NYXL, and I think he played a little bit. He looked decent. But the one thing is at the end of this match, when it started, push came to shove, and they had Fleta in there, he kind of took over on Reaper and just demoed the Spark. He had one bad ult in the middle of the whole thing on New Queen Street where he went in that subway car, or that whatever is the train station, right at the point where the bot starts. And he went in there with a bubble and a Death Blossom and a Dream, and he was left standing there with his dick in his hand, essentially. Everybody just ran away. Which, hey, you can run away from a Death Blossom. Who knew? Well, especially in a closed area like that. But I'm just kind of joking about that. But then he just picked it up from there and just went off, and it was fun to see. In this match, if you want to say there was a slip up, I think both teams kind of slipped up a little bit and could have, at least Hangzhou, I thought, could have finished business on Eichenwald. I mean, they did get a little bit lucky here and there on Shanghai's attack run, but they had a good plan going in, and they started moving the car, and they got it pretty darn far, and they just fell apart. Dragons kind of put the clamps on them in that. I thought they could have easily taken that away from them, and you could say the same for Night Market. For the Dragons, they let that slip away. They kind of lost control center by just comp diff going in. They went in, and they were doing a Mei Rhine thing, and then they kind of switched it all up, but they switched to Reaper Winston, which doesn't work. And then Lip eventually went to Tracer, but it was too late in that round. But I think if they would have went right off the rip, if they would have just said, you know what, let's switch into maybe a Winston Tracer, or you go the standard Zarya Reaper in the close quarters on Control Center and try that. Maybe you go in. I mean, Soldier, you have a little bit of trouble with sight lines and stuff like that, but you can run a Tracer in there too. I think they could have done a little bit more with that. Granted, they had Fate in there, so Zarya really wasn't an option, so I guess you got to go Winston comp. You go Winston, I would have went with maybe a Soldier Tracer. I don't know. They could have just done a lot more with that comp than they did going in, and they just basically gave Hangzhou a free point on that map. It was really kind of frightening. And then the last part of that map, crucial pick. I think Alpha Yi might have picked off Lip, who just got his visor and was about ready to, I'm sure he was ready to unleash it because they were getting pretty low. And he picked him off, and he just couldn't get back really in time for it. And, Hangzhou snuck that map away from Shanghai. All in all, though, I really liked how this match played out. I think both teams look good at points, bad at points. But if I'm on Hangzhou, I wouldn't be disappointed that you lost this. You went swinging with the Dragons for 5 maps, and you could have very well won it. Might have let it slip through your fingers, but don't let that bother you. Say, hey, look, we're as good as these guys. We stayed with them the whole match. And potentially, who knows, they could be as good as Shanghai this year, because Shanghai looked a little off, I'm not going to lie. The possibility we might see these two teams meet again in the playoffs, and they might be kicking themselves for not getting that win against, like I said, against Shanghai, Hangzhou that is. But I can't wait to see these two teams play again, because I really think that they match up really well, better than I thought they were going to. That's my take on that match. Okay, next match we got the Shock versus the Gladiators. I know Glad fans, it's painful, but we're talking about this one. So, here we go. My thoughts on this match. Going in, I liked San Francisco 3-2 in this, and I didn't think it was going to be a reverse sweep. I just thought both of these teams are kind of on equal footing as far as skill, etc., and I thought San Francisco might have had a little bit more, and that was mostly based on the coaching, which comes into play in this match later on. Initially, Shock, they had their chance to win Oasis. They very well could have won it. They just got outplayed a few times, a couple of key picks here and there by Kevster was just on fire. Throughout this whole match, Kevster looked good. And it's not that you worry about Kevster at all. But Patapan also looked decent enough when he was in there. There were key moments in this where the Shock lost, especially on University. They could have very well done that. It was a kind of a mirror Doom thing going on. Doom is pretty good on that part of the map. I like it on there. I mean, you always get like niche things in certain control maps, which I like. You have different comps for different ones, and that is one of them where you can run Doom pretty well. But the Gladiators come out ahead in that. The next map, which is they played Midtown, I thought that you had the Shock were a little too aggressive in the go after Shu thing, which, yes, you want to. Shu is a key component, but meanwhile, while they have the Winston and somebody else diving in on the Shu, the rest of their team is getting knocked off. So you got to back down on that. And they ended up losing Midtown, and I understand the sentiment there and doing what you do like that, but the Gladiators counterplayed that perfectly. We might lose Shu, but let's take care of these other guys. And they did a good job of mitigating some of the situations that the Shock were actually putting themselves in by overextending with their dives. And to a point, they're justified. But if you notice what the Gladiators are doing, you got to kind of back down a little bit. And going into halftime, I thought it was 2-0, but I thought it was close, and I didn't think that the Shock necessarily would reverse sweep them. I had a feeling that they were going to come up with something different, and they sure enough did. They went full APAC with their Route 66, and they did Winston with the Ash and a Brig, and that gives you a lot of mitigation of dives. It's almost the Overwatch 2 kind of anti-dive. You have Dynamite, you have Coach Gun. A lot of people are saying Ash is not that great. Her biggest thing is her reload, but you're not necessarily using her for the typical things that you would want to use Ash for. You want that Coach Gun. You want it to be available for not only escaping, but you want to be able to use it to pound the Winston and punish him for diving, and kind of almost like a peel situation with your back line. And then you have Brig still has whip shot, and that's very powerful against a dive. And I liked the way they were playing that. And they took 66, and I don't think the Gladiators are necessarily ready for it. And they also did a couple things. Kilo and Proper are so good, and then they could play pretty much anything. And there were moments where in this match, too, where you had Kilo playing Tracer, Proper playing 76. They kind of went back and forth and swapped a little bit. But you could still keep your comp. Just maybe the other guy might be a little hotter at that point. I think we're going to see a lot more of this, especially on defense on some of the hybrid maps and things like that. You're going to see some of the Ash and Brigida stuff going on. And that's kind of key the Shock end up doing to the Gladiators for the rest of the match. They just were one step ahead of them comp-wise, and they adjusted on the fly better than the Gladiators did, and it's crusty. And the Shock coaching staff on the whole, they just outcoached and essentially led to a 3-2 victory. Kind of gave them life in the match, and they went on and they kind of did a number on the Gladiators. It was a little back and forth, a lot of pokey on Coliseo, but eventually Proper and Kilo kind of took over, and they won that. And then on Lijiang, you had Proper just shutting the door at the end with a Death Blossom, and he's amazing, and he just does all the things for this team, kind of. But you got to also look at Kaluge. You got to take into consideration, too, that Violet's playing a decent Lucio, and he's doing a lot of the things that you weren't really ready for him to do. You thought he was going to be kind of average and just work his way around it. The more he plays, the better he gets, because he can afford to take a couple of chances here and there because the rest of the team is so damn good. Finn is unbelievable. The whole team is just unbelievable. And, the Glads, they just didn't finish. I mean, you had a fantastic match from Shu, from Kevster. Reiner played well, but in the end, you don't win. And that's you just got to figure out your formula at the end. You got to adapt to what they're doing. And on maps like 66, where they switch up comps, you got to be able to notice that and counter it instead of just diving continuously into it, knowing that you're going to get knocked back with the coach gun. You're going to get whip-shotted. You're going to have constant healing, and Proper's going to have repair packs from Breg all over the place. Anytime he runs into LOS, she's chucking a repair pack on Proper on Tracer, and that's huge. You got to be ready for that, and that was the key to me. That was the key to the match, because the rest of it was pretty close. Coliseo was a little not, but Lijiang Tower was very close at the end. And, you had 2 points on that map where Gladiators had the advantage, and they lost it. A lot of it on play by Proper. On that map, Sam doing some things like on Genji and whatever else he was playing, Echo at points. And they're hard to beat when those guys start rolling. You got Proper on a roll. He is hard carry, alpha DPS guy. He's going to take over. And you can't let that happen. And Kevster was doing his best, and, he was getting the best of some of the matchups, but in the end, Proper just owned. And the Shock, on the whole, Kaluge played good. A lot of things happened with this team. They did a good job. They came back. They beat the Gladiators. Gladiators just need to get it together and finish these big teams off. They have another big match next week. They play Atlanta. Is it going to be another reverse sweep, or are they going to go out there and just take it to the rain? Who knows? We'll have to see. If they lose another reverse sweep or a 3-2 match, you're going to look at potentially three maps for this team that could cost them being in the kickoff clash or have a bad record going into it at the 8th seed. Unless they take the Dallas route like last year and just, we got the 8th seed. We're just trying to figure things out, and we're just going to go own kids now. Who knows? But it was a fantastic match. There were some good matches. The lineup wasn't good, but next week we got a lot of stuff going on. We got to get ready for the kickoff clash. We will have our teams all seated up and ready to go by the end of next week. But I'll have previews out coming up later on in the week. This week, I will have the Apex one up Wednesday, and Thursday I will have up the NA preview. Just because we have a lot of APAC matches, and they start on Thursday this week because of the amount. Because you have a couple teams playing 4 matches and everybody else is playing 3. So there's going to be a lot of stuff going on in the mornings at the end of the week this week. But that's going to do it, guys. Thanks for all of your support. All of you guys that have been here for 1 day or 5 years, thank you very much. It's greatly appreciated, and I truly, truly mean that. And if you guys are new and made it through to the end of the video, thank you very much. If you could do me a favor, hit a like, hit a subscribe, do all the YouTube jazz for me. That would be fantastic. This is Misfit. I'm out. Everybody stay safe, have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you on the next one.